All right, hello everybody. We are back. Amanda again. She's here for my second podcast.
Hello.
Yeah, she was so good. And we had so much to talk about, and we have so much more to talk about. And we said that we're going to do another one, and so here we are with number two.
We could have made number 1, 2, 3, 4 hours if you wanted, but we thought it was nice to cut it off and do a part 2.
Yeah, and I'm just dipping my toe in the water here. So that was the test, and now here we are again, and we're rolling. So I do want to say some things that I talked to Amanda about to everybody. I got feedback that people were asking me. Some people were asking me why we're looking, like when I'm talking to Amanda, why I'm still looking forward instead of looking directly at her when I'm talking to her. And we didn't talk about it in the first podcast, but when we first tested out the video situation that we have here, we tried talking just straight to each other, looking at each other. And so just for this one time, just going to explain it. If we sit here and look at each other and have a conversation, it totally felt as we rewatched the video as the test that we were not engaging with the audience, which is you guys. And so we're here together doing a show with us, but with you guys. So that's why we chose to do this.
There's 3 people here.
That's right. That's right. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring up from our last podcast. I do want to bring up another thing from our last podcast. I want to correct myself. So I said at one point, I don't want to make anyone who's religious feel bad by saying, if you're religious, you're in a box. So it's not a box. And then moments later, after I made that comment, I referred to being in religion as a box. So I contradicted myself, and so I just want to make a quick clarification before we proceed with any other topic. If you are spiritual, if you have faith, if you have love and spirit and beliefs, that is something that I feel can come from anywhere. And if it happens to be through a religion, then that's great for you. For myself personally, I felt confined by the structure of religion because I guess I'm just so abstract of a person, and I want to know what I felt, what religion was showing me more than religion had capable for me, for what I want to know. So if you're religious, again, I apologize. I'm not going to condemn it. I'm not going to put it in a box. I'm not going to give it a title, or that's more of a connotation. That's more of me expressing an opinion toward it by calling it a box. Is almost like belittling or demeanoring. So just want to wipe the slate clean and apologize. Whatever your faith is, if it's within the confines of a religion and it makes your world a better place, I'm all for it. Personally, I just don't practice organized religion because it just wasn't for me.
And what a beautiful characteristic to be able to sit here and say, hey, let me correct myself.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, because I want to...
you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to be not neutral, but I want to be as acceptable as I can. Right? So if I were to say that I feel like I'm better than religion because I'm higher than religion, I just lowered myself with that comment.
Yeah, and what a silly thing to even think. I mean, honestly. There's everything's like different layers, right? They're just layers, they're not levels.
Yeah, right, that's right. So a lot of times I'm going to do a little diagram with my hands here. People think like, okay, if there's a spectrum of like love and hate or loneliness and anything, the spectrum is on this line. But truly I believe that spectrums are on a sphere. And there's so many different spikes and peaks and valleys on a sphere on a 360 degree level that you can have different aspects of any individual person. So if you are religious and you abide by the confines of the policies or the practices of the religion, even if I don't, I can't tell myself that I'm better than you, because what you do on this earth and the impact that you have moves just as much, if not more, mountains and influences people than I will.
Absolutely.
And it's not a tally. It's not like who's getting more done and who's more worthy because of their impact on the world and what they've accomplished. It's not that. So that's a part of being humble. You just humble yourself to just and that's, I think, that humility that I have toward my view of anybody who is religious, even though I don't consider myself religious, you could find that same humility in someone who is religious.
Absolutely.
Who would say even if Adrian isn't religious, I'm not going to judge him, and he's probably just as loved by God as much as I am. But I do it this way, and he does it that way, and that's a benevolence that I think that we should all have for each other.
I agree.
You know, that's a beautiful thing. So let's start right there, and then let's get on topic.
All right.
So now, the original point of me having these podcasts was for people to connect with each other. So in the sharing of our stories, we learn about each other. We learn about the things that we've gone through, and in that instance, people that are watching could have been going through the same thing, or it could inspire them to recognize something that they're looking at someone else from who's going through that same thing, and just find insight in some of the stories that we have, some of the viewpoints that we have, and then mostly the idea that I feel like when we connect this way as a people, as a community, we are actually connecting with each other. So it's through this digital conduit that we're using it, but it's like the people that watch this podcast are going to get to know me. The people that watch this podcast are going to get to know you and anybody else that's on the show. And even if we're not with each other in person, you're on this journey with us. So anyone who watches this show who doesn't know Amanda will now know her better. And anyone that she shares the video with who doesn't know Adrian now knows Adrian better. And so we're able to share ourselves. And I think that with that, that's going to bring more insight to everyone. So, you know, like if we didn't have this technology and you lived in a town of 100 people, and you only got a newspaper from around the world, you'd only know those 200 people. You'd read the news of what's going on outside in the world, but you wouldn't know anyone. Now we get to talk to anyone around the entire world. You can meet anyone, and people are doing it. I know. I
follow quite a few people.
Yeah, and you get to know them. And so this is like really a huge advent of the times that we're in, where you get to actually know someone that's nowhere close to you. Or they could be a town away from you, and you get to know them that way as well. That's why I think social media is awesome. Like, a lot of people put it down because of the negative side effects of social media, but at the same time, you get to connect with so many different people and so many different perspectives, so many different personality types, different opinions. That just keeps for an open mind. And that creates a healthier society, I believe. Like, that's going to take our humanity to a higher level. The ability to immerse yourself with different thought patterns, different thinking.
Cultures.
Critical thinking, cultures, beliefs, ideas, opinions on a topic. Like, I cannot tell you how many times, like, there'll be a post about anything, and as I'm scrolling through, you see a lot of, like, the same rhetoric, but then you'll get one on a topic that you didn't think of that way before. And you're like, oh, that's actually, and then boom, you just add it to your entourage of knowledge.
Yep.
So it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I love the online community. And I too will read through a lot of comments. On, like, you watch a post or a video, and it's like, what do the comments say? I want to hear what the people, how they're reacting to this post and what it is. And it is an amalgamation of all kinds, depending on where they grew up, cultures, stuff like that. I absolutely love the diversity that online culture brings us. Yeah. So
technology, I think, is very good. Technology is outstanding. Like, the advent of our technology.
It's just we need balance with it, right? With everything. Balance with, work-life balance. You need balance with your food, balance with your diet, balance with internet and devices.
Well, it's very infantile as well, right? Okay, so
True.
Think about it 100 years, 50 years ago, I don't even know if there was an internet. I don't know exactly when the internet started. But as in regard to, like, when people could go online on a computer and then have access to Google to look up anything that you wanted.
Yeah.
All right, so you can look up anything that you want, and you have the internet, and then from that sprang, and I think before Google there was definitely social media. There was AOL online where people would do dial-up chat friends and stuff like that.
Dial-up.
And then, it went to Skype, and now with social media, you have all these people saying, like, bullying is happening, and I believe that that's true. That's a really horrible thing that happens. But then all the influence that you get, like if you have your friend circle who's posting this vacation, or their new car, or the fine dining that they're at, or they're at the beach, or they're having a spa day and all this stuff, no one really shares their misery, except every once in a while you see somebody posting something about someone's in the hospital. and send prayers out to that person, or this person is missing. Send a prayer or a GoFundMe because their house burnt down from an accident, that kind of stuff. And so a lot of people felt like social media was bad because of the way it affected the youth, and social media was bad because how much time it would consume. You just start scrolling and you'd lose hours when you only went online because you wanted to remember the last name of someone. Just that one check, and now 40 minutes or an hour later, and you're like,
I've been guilty.
Oh, we all are. Absolutely. That's a fact. But the truth is, it's still infant. The internet and social media is still infant. So we're learning, how to find the balance with it right now in our day and age. So, in your and my lifetime, it was born.
Yeah.
In our kids' lifetime, they already had it.
Right.
So in our grandkids' time, their parents will have always had it. We're parents who didn't have it and then learned it. And now our kids are learning it, and then their kids are going to learn it from people who have always had it. So I think it's going to it's doing this, and then it's just going to kind of do this, and it's just going to find a balance where people are more responsible with it.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think so. It's just newness. The newness when something's new, you want to consume, and people are going to probably start to get bored with it, right?
Or you just, as a humanity, we're learning the effects of what it can do. You just launched this new toy, and so you get the toy, and the toy doesn't actually come with that many warnings, none at all. It's just here's a toy.
Actually, there is a warning pamphlet that I don't think anyone ever reads. Right?
Is
Terms
it about,
and conditions.
But is it about
keeping it away from the head?
Well, that's a different topic. Microwaves have that problem.
Yeah.
Exhaust from the car in front of you has that problem.
Yeah, for sure.
But a warning as far as no social media says don't watch this for more than 2 hours a day. No, they promote you watching it all day long if they could get you.
Take these blue light glasses that help so you can watch it longer.
Scroll through your social media with virtual goggles.
Yeah.
Just forget the world outside.
Right.
Just be here. Yeah. So there's no warnings for that. There was no warning with social media. It was just this new toy that everyone got. Even our grandparents had a taste of it. And then our parents had a taste of it. And now we have a taste of it. We all got to taste it at the exact same time that it came out. And we're like, yay, a fun new toy. Let's go. And then we did it. And then what would I say, 15 years? 20 years? We're like, there's some side effects to this thing.
Yeah, we're learning.
Let's not do it to our kids.
I love you having this perspective instead of demonizing it. Because so many people like to demonize it and say, no, you gotta, take it away from the kids. And but you having this open-minded perspective because it has brought a lot of good.
Right.
Now we get to see the whole picture with a lot of societies and stuff, whereas before we only relied on mainstream news or the newspaper, like you said. And now we can actually gather information all over the place, which also can be a double-edged sword because
that's the thing.
Misinformation, can come everywhere. So what it's really teaching us is to really sit into our own hearts and develop our own discernment of what you're consuming and what is real, even when it comes to what your friends are posting and stuff like that. Again, a lot of people put on a facade and you said, post only the positive and joyful moments of their life because it makes them feel good. But listen to your own discernment and see if you can feel past or feel through what people are posting, what this media news outlet is saying, or vice versa. You gotta really hone in on your discernment.
Discernment? I would say discernment for sure. When it comes to discernment, I would always also say this too. If I'm scrolling through any social media site, app, when I'm looking at certain posts, I'm also side asking myself, why is this person posting this? What are they posting it for? What are they getting out of this? Right? So if I post a picture of a beautiful sunrise with just rainbow, colorful clouds and birds, and let's say there's some water in there and some trees, and it's a really beautiful thing. When I post it, I'll put a fun little caption to it, oh my God, I love life. It's so beautiful. Or look at how many colors there are in the world. What a magical place. And then I'll post it. And the intention of me posting that isn't to get credit for people to say, wow, what a great photo, Adrian. Or what a wonderful time you were able to have. My intention behind that post is to share the moment that I'm having with people in hopes that imagery has a wonderful effect on them just witnessing it, even though they weren't there with me in the moment. That's the intention of my posting it. And then I think to myself, a lot of the stuff that people are posting when they post it, actually, when they post it, I feel like there's an intention behind their post to get attention.
Of course.
To receive some credit for it.
I'm guilty.
To say, like, look at me, look at what I'm doing. And I'm guilty as well, too. Like, I used to love posting. I don't post that much anymore. But I would always post, like, what me and my kids were up to.
Yeah.
Like the daily adventures of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I still do every once in a while when it's a very precious moment that's dear to my heart that I want to share with the world. But I used to do it, like, all the time. Like, almost weekly or daily.
Yeah.
It was obnoxious, but my kids were so cute. So it was really about me wanting to share with the world
how cute your kids are.
What I was
They're
experiencing.
So
and then people would respond to it, because people love that stuff. They love puppies, they love kids, they love cats, they love sunsets, they love pretty sparkly clouds. And really what the people that would like it back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they liked it, they liked that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They were saying back to me, like, if they hearted it or thumbed it up or actually had a comment, the message that I got back from them was, Adrian, it looks like you're having a fabulous time. Thank you for sharing this. That's wonderful. And that sounds good. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But then there is also the fact of the matter that if I'm posting this, I'm wanting people to see the fun that I'm having. Mm-hmm. And I would look for how many responses I got back. And I would look at who was responding back to say, who cares about what I'm posting? Yeah. And then that's where it kind of shifted a little bit for me. Like, I don't like that I do that. Mm-hmm. I like that I shared something that I found special and precious for me. And maybe that would, like, bring some joy to somebody else. But I didn't like the effect that it was having on me. So that became more of, like, when I would get on social media, I'd pay attention to how I was interacting with it.
Yes.
What it meant to me.
An internal recognition.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Great words.
I don't think that was a word, but thank you.
I mean, a combination of description.
Oh, okay.
Internal recognition.
Recognition, there we go.
Yeah. If that's the word that you meant to say.
It was.
Okay.
Internal recognition. Mm-hmm. I love that. And just everything that you do, you have a relationship to everything.
Right, yeah. To your social media.
Yeah, and that's what matters. Mm-hmm. What matters most is, what is your relationship to this? What is your relationship to that? And living that internal journey, just start asking yourself, what state of being or what posture am I coming from when I'm doing this or doing that? Or, am I coming out of a loneliness posture? Am I coming out of a desperate posture? Am I coming out of a joyful posture? Am I coming out of a, I love asking myself those questions with everything that I do. Am I doing this because I'm seeking something or trying to fill an empty hole? Or is it, and then what do you do with that? If the answer is, I'm trying to fill an empty hole inside me, so I'm going to go do this. When you recognize that, what do you do with it?
You keep track of it. Yeah. You pay attention. You don't forget it. You keep tracking. Well, like for me, like I'm glad you asked me that question, because I'm actually very excited to, like, share my small snippet of my story and how I got to be where I am now on my journey. And I don't know how much I really talked too much about it in the last podcast, but I've definitely I've definitely told this story before. So at one point in my life, I'm not going to categorize myself or conditionalize how I saw, like, where I'm at now, looking back, how I saw myself acting. What I'll do is I'll go back in that time and I'll say, in that moment, for a very series of reasons, started saying to myself, I don't like who I am. I wasn't happy with myself. I originally wasn't just happy with life in general. And I knew that. I knew I was feeling like I wasn't happy with life. And then as I started contemplating what it was that I wasn't happy with life about, as much as I tried to put blame on the external world or external things or people or situations or my own personal situation where I realized that it wasn't those things, it was actually myself that I wasn't happy with. And when I got to that train of thought that brought me to that one thought, that one pinpoint thought, that's when I realized, okay, so if I don't like aspects about myself, and I've been trying to blame everything else around me as the reason why I'm not happy with life, what are the things that I'm not happy with myself about? Because I understood, like, it's really my participation, the kind of person that I was and how I showed up in all of the different situations in my life that I wasn't happy with. I wasn't happy with me in life. So first I was telling myself I wasn't happy with life, and then I realized, well, I'm not happy with myself. I'm not happy with myself and my relationship with life. But I can't change life. Everything outside of me, every person, every situation, all those aspects that I was initially putting blame to, those were unchangeable.
That's a beautiful awakening right there.
That was.
Itself.
Yep, and that was the beginning of what I call my spiritual resurgence. So that's what happened to me. That was the one thought that brought me to this place that I'm in now. And I remember tracking it because I thought to myself, and this is, I've heard psychologists talk about this. I've heard a lot of people discover this also on their own. It might even become a new form of self-healing therapy, like this actual program. And when I've heard other people describe it, I'm like, wow, I just did that on my own. And so I hope a lot of other people are coming to this realization. And since I had it, I love sharing it. So what it is in the moment that I realized that I wasn't happy with myself, that I was the problem. And that's a big step right there, right? That's like a huge step because I've done a lot of work with a lot of people. And the hardest thing for anyone to do is to admit that they're the problem. So here I was, I'm admitting that I'm the problem. I'm not happy with myself. Well, if you're not happy with yourself, what are you going to do? You're going to change yourself. All right, well, what needs changing? What is it about you that you're not happy with? What is it about you and your relationship with life, and your relationship with anybody else in your life, and your relationship with all the circumstances in your life? What is it about you that you're not happy with? So I did what your question was. What do you do with that? I paid attention. I paid attention to every time I did or said anything that made me feel unhappy, that made me feel unfulfilled, that made me feel like that's the person that I am really resenting right now. That version of me is the version of me that I don't feel is who I want to be anymore. Because that's the version that I have been for so long that it's not fulfilling anything for me. It's actually, when I look back on when I look at myself as that former person, I'm ashamed of that person. I'm not proud of that person. That's nobody that I would want to be, yet here I am and I am it. So I'm like, okay, well, if I don't even like looking at myself, if I don't even like how I think, how I act, how I respond, well, you got to change it. So I would pay attention to every time I'd have a situation where, and I kind of went into like third party mode now at this point in my life. So I still did my day, still did my week, right? Yep. You became the witness, and I became the witness, and so it was a lot of work, right? But since I made it my mission, it was always on. I always had it turned on. And so even if I was in an interaction with somebody at work, a coworker, or a neighbor, or a stranger, or the people in my family circle or friend circle, I was always paying attention to, in traffic's always a big one. You're driving with 100 people a day, and there's interactions there. Totally. There's interactions in traffic.
And it's easy to get triggered because there's not many people can hear you or be around you, and so you can easily really let yourself out.
Well, they're fleeting moments.
Yeah.
And you don't know that person.
Yeah.
So you're just raw emotion, and you're never going to see them, and you're hiding behind your vehicle. Yeah. So your real self comes out. So you can be very impatient, very judgmental, very rude, very crass, very inconsiderate, very careless, very reckless. So when I started paying attention to all the things that I didn't like about myself, I would catch them. And when I would catch them, I would say to myself, all right, you don't like the fact that you thought that way. Now, even if you didn't express your thought or your feeling, you still had it, and you didn't like it.
Right.
So now maybe, you as an example, you're a psychic, right? And I don't know that you're a psychic. So we're walking in the grocery store, and I see you looking at a certain food that I think is just gross. Even if it's healthy for you. Just personally, I think that's a gross food. With a split-second thought, I might see that stranger. You're a stranger, but you're psychic, and I don't know it. And I'm just looking, I'm like, oh, I hate that food. She's probably lame. I don't like that person now because she's eating weird food. Well, the psychic knew that I said that. But she didn't respond. So I felt like I got away with it. And we all think we can get away with all the thoughts that we have, even if they're not expressed. Now, technically, we do get away with them. All the thoughts that and all the feelings that we have, because we assume that no one is psychic and no one can hear our thoughts.
Well, we haven't developed the telepathic abilities that we do have.
Right.
We haven't developed them yet.
Well,
we're getting there.
We're getting there, right? But guess who does know? Guess who you did? Yeah, you, the thinker, the feeler. You didn't get away with that thought.
Totally.
So I didn't like that I wasn't, that's the biggest thing that I started noticing. I'm not getting away from those thoughts, and I don't like those thoughts. I'm ashamed of those thoughts. I'm embarrassed of those thoughts. So if I don't want to have those thoughts, what are you going to do if you don't want to have them every time? I would pay attention when I had it. I would catch it and I'd say, nope. You're not going to have that thought. Because even if she isn't psychic, I still feel like there's a part of her that receives it anyways. Sure. If she doesn't have a psychic link to me or a psychic access, she may not consciously know, but energetically, I think we feel what we're all feeling. Yeah. And whether we can acknowledge it. Like if the wind blows on my arm, my skin has senses that lets me feel the wind. Mm-hmm. So if my thoughts are directed negatively towards someone, even though that sense hasn't been developed yet, that effect still happens. Yes. And I really felt that. I truly believed it. So not just for the sake of not spreading negative energy or being mean or harmful toward another person with my thoughts and my feelings, or unkind, I also wanted to just do it for myself because I wasn't happy with who I was. The fact that I was having these thoughts. The fact that I was having those feelings. That I was judgmental and critical and impatient. All in my mind and all in my feelings. That was enough for me to say, I don't want to be that person anymore. And so when I would have them, I would say, you're not going to have that feeling. You're not going to have that thought about that person. You have to catch yourself when you have them, and they're so swift. And there was 1,000 of them an hour that I was catching myself with in all these situations. And so when I caught them, what I would do is I would say to myself, okay, hold on. Instead, so we're going to go back into the store, okay? Yep. We're there. Yep. And instead, it would be like this. I would see her and I'd be like, oh, dumb person. Wait, no. Actually, they're just having something that I don't like. And whether it's healthy for them or not, it's not even my business. So why am I worried about what somebody else is thinking? In fact, if that person enjoys that food, so that's just neutral. I'm going to stay out of someone else's business. Yep. Why am I so nosy? Why am I so... Because I was comparing myself to other people. Because I was constantly comparing myself to other people. I was comparing myself to everyone around me because I had such a low self-esteem that I wasn't aware of. Yeah. I had such a low sense of my self-value that I spent my time looking at other people to give myself a gauge of where I was on my own podium based on other people to make me feel higher. And I didn't even know I was doing it.
What a beautiful awareness and a very sad awareness to come. Yeah, well, like when it first came to you.
Yeah, I was very upset at myself. I was very disappointed. So as my own best, support system, I was like, you got to do better, buddy. I know you can do better. And so that was just taking myself to the neutral state, right? Now I'm not only going to not condemn someone, I'm going to take myself out of their business and bring my attention back to myself. But then I'm going to also say a thank you back to that person, or I'm going to send an affirmation back to that person to bring myself up to a higher level. So now we're not just sending negative energy, and we're also just not sending not energy. We're going to send some positive energy. So then my response after catching myself and realizing that's none of my business and stop doing that, I'm also going to say, I actually love the fact that I'm seeing somebody buying something that they enjoy, that brings joy to their life, and that makes me happy.
I love that. You turn the energy around.
Yeah, it's alchemy. Yeah. It's alchemy. And I did it with myself for months. Like on end. With every aspect in my life. Like I was literally on a self-pilgrimage for months. And
nobody probably knew around you.
Well, I shared it with some people. Okay. That was also, backstory, during the time of the falling apart of my marriage. So because here I am on this track of... self-growth, really self-discovery, self-growth, self-awareness, self-expansion. I brought it home with me, and I shared it with the closest person in my life, which was my wife. Right. And she didn't want to have anything to do with it, because not that she probably didn't believe in the cause or the effect, but because since I was so infantile, I started also using her as an example. So I'd point out her.
Like you would say it out loud in the thing?
No, I would point out her when she would do what I was doing. I'd be like, you shouldn't do that because I'm not doing that anymore.
That's another lesson learned.
Yeah, big time. So she didn't like that. I became super critical of her. Totally. Because I was critical of myself.
But you're doing it kind of out of love and you're,
Right, well, intentions are only as far as someone wants to receive them, and she didn't want to receive them because she didn't want to change the way I was changing. She was still holding on
Which is fine.
Right. Not for me, though.
Sometimes people grow apart.
We totally grew apart. Yeah. Right. So that was during that time.
Okay.
So I didn't really share it with... I mean, I shared it with some people. And then that's when the universe brought people into my life. My soul family. Yeah. They started dropping in, and that also made my ex-wife mad that I had other people that I was now commiserating with, not with her. Well, I couldn't commiserate with her because she didn't want to commiserate with me anymore. Our level of communication and our intellectual relationship became very estranged.
Yeah, you wanted to live a life where you're shining a light on everything. You're bringing darkness to light, and she was uncomfortable with it.
Right, she didn't like it. So I would share it with people sometimes if they like noticed, like just my personality, my persona. They're like, "Wow, you're like really happy and whatever. What's your deal?" And I'd be like, "Well, I can give you the elevator version." And so I'm gonna say my elevator version right now.
Let's hear it.
And then I'm gonna cap off this whole part of my journey, which brought me to the kind of person that I am now.
Okay.
The elevator version is this: with every thought or feeling that I had that I didn't like, I would pay attention when it happened, and I would catch it, and then I would rewrite a better thought for it. So it's literally reprogramming my habitual thinking that I wasn't even aware of. Now here's the cool thing. This is why it was such good medicine for me, and this is why it's actually becoming a practice for psychology and therapy. When you start eradicating things in your psyche, in your psychological thinking, in your active thinking, you become very self-aware, you're very mindful, and you're rewriting the things that you want to think and feel. Like you're telling yourself, like, I'm not subject to my feelings. I will have them, but then if there are feelings that I don't appreciate in these situations, I'm going to put in a new one and take this one out. Correct, you're the programmer. So the feelings that I was having, I'm going to name them, and most people will be like, yeah, those aren't very good. But we all have them, so it's not like we're exempt from them. It was comparison, pointed that one out, being judgmental, being critical, looking down on someone, condemning someone, being impatient. That's a very big one because I was an impatient person. Not forgiving, holding grudges, angry, being quick to anger as a response to situations that were offensive or interrupting. You know, I'd go to anger, jealousy. And so just with those handful, there's many more.
It's a good handful.
Right. When I started eradicating those from my thought process and catching them every time they came up and giving it a different one, or at least just getting rid of those ones and putting anything else in, a very wonderful side effect happened. It was just the most miraculous, amazing thing. What I was doing, if you want to just imagine me as a ball of energy, and I'm taking all this stuff out of my ball that I don't want anymore, you're creating space in your ball. Now your ball has this open space. And unbeknownst to me, a side effect happened from that. That space started filling in with other things that I wasn't necessarily asking for, but were just very innate and natural, like love and joy and happiness, consideration, compassion, understanding, patience, acceptance. Those just started filling in, and they became a part of my personality because I just took the other stuff out. Those were really always there, but now they actually had room to flourish and grow. That's my elevator speech.
I love that, and I love that image. That's the
elevator version. Right. Yeah. I mean, and people would see it on me. Like, I even had people in, like, coffee stores. Like, something about you, you're just so happy. What is the, like, you're, like, the happiest person I've seen in, like, a month. And I'm like, well, and I give them the quick, like, I've even condensed it smaller than that to, like, keep it within, like, 3 minutes. The elevator speech is supposed to be 5. Make it in 3 as long as it's coherent.
Yeah.
The message still sticks.
Yep.
They can, like, find their own path to that same exercise. But it was huge, and it got so silly that it was to the point where when someone would actually get mad at me or somebody was yelling at me, I would laugh. I'd find laughter.
They probably hated that even more.
They did, but I would even apologize to them. I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at you, but just like when people get mad at me, my now new immediate response is just laughter, because and I had to think about that, like, why is it laughter? Because I'm not laughing at them because
like, look at this angry person.
Yeah, they're so stupid. No, the actual reason, and I think I'm correct with myself, I hope I am, was I found laughter in it because they felt anger was the reason, and I saw that anger was, or not anger was the reason, anger was the answer, or anger was their solution, or anger was the path they chose.
Yes.
And it seems so silly that that's the one they chose, that it was laughable. I'm not laughing at them.
Yeah.
But it just made me laugh. Maybe it's because it was my
former
self.
You see the facade in it now.
The facade, and there was more options.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just made me laugh. I can't really explain it. It's still my response.
I really so badly want to get angry with you. I want you to upset me so I can get like angry, and then I want to have that experience.
To have me laugh at your anger?
Yeah.
I don't know if I could make you angry.
It'd be fun.
Though.
I don't think so.
We'll do that as a side exercise. We can like actually play like some role play.
I want to experience this with Adrian.
Okay. But it is like, well,
I love that.
You could see it. Like, okay, so there was a situation that Amanda didn't see my laughter, but it was a total legit one that could have happened. We're not going to get into the full details, but her and I are at a park. Some things got out of hand.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, a child got hurt. And all I was doing was helping operate a kid's playground, merry-go-round. And I had warned this kid multiple times.
He's got strong legs.
Not to do. I didn't know how powerful I was. And so all these kids are on this thing.
Oh, they're excited.
I'm just like a Clydesdale, like a steed just running, like a steam engine, just launching this thing. And the kids are like hanging on for dear life, and the centrifugal force is like making them like...
and most of them are laughing and having a...
and dizzying their heads just like that. They're getting high off gravity. It was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Except for this one kid who was a little daredevil who I had to reprimand a couple times, and then one time he snuck outside of my vision on this thing and got to get away with doing the thing that I kept telling him he couldn't do or shouldn't do, and he went flying off this thing. Now, that kid's parents tended to him, and I hope he's okay. He launched pretty far. I was scared, like, for this poor child. But then
he was fine.
A couple of other parents came over and started berating me. They didn't necessarily instantly berate me, but they told me very sternly, you can't do this anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? I guess I can. Like, you can't tell me what to do. And they're like, I don't want my kids on there. If my kid's on there, you're not allowed to do it. And their kids were younger than this boy. And my kids were on it. I don't remember if your kids were on it or not. But I think they were. Not to just excuse myself from the situation, but this kid was doing something very different. So anyway, these parents were very upset about it. And then, so they started like kind of hammering down on me like I was a problem.
One lady got really heated.
She got right up in my face like I was a threat to this park and these poor children. Yep. And I was just trying to explain myself, and she wouldn't really let me. So Amanda came to my aid and started like backing me up like, hey lady, don't get mad at him. And then another father who was there kind of even said the same thing too to this lady. And it was the one lady, but she was back with a couple of other parents. So she kind of felt like she had like momentum with that. You know, she's got support in her cause that this man is not allowed to play with these kids because he's going to hurt them. And that would have been a scenario where laughter could have come out of me. However, it just didn't in that moment because she put me in a place where I really felt I had to defend myself. Yeah. So I was just trying to navigate her aggression. So focused that wasn't a case where it came out.
Yeah. It's hard when you feel like your character is attacked, especially when it comes to children.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I said to her. I was like, if you know this man, he would never put a child in harm's way.
Well, then we tried to explain the fundamentals of it to her. Look at the thing right now. There's like 30 kids on there. Some of them are like 3, 4, 5 years old. This kid that flew off was like 15.
Older, much older.
Right? And he was doing it because he was being reckless. So you don't need to yell at me for me and what I'm doing. That kid was the problem. And and what is that? That took like 3 sentences for me to say that just now. I could barely even get those out. She just kept berating me because she was really talking at me. Yep. Not with me. That's another bigger thing that I like when it comes to like my responses to people when they're angry, and if they like want to reprimand or they want to get in your face and tell you did something wrong. Within the first few seconds, I can now determine. And I want everyone to take this one with you. It is very clear when someone's talking at you. Because they want to say to you what they have to say, and they're not having a conversation with you. Right. That is a one-sided street, and it's not worth having. So no matter what they're saying, if you try to defend yourself or explain yourself, just be very honest with yourself. I'm in the presence of someone who just wants to talk at me, not with me. There's no conversation to be had there. Nope. Those aren't conversations.
So what do you do then? Laugh?
In that instance, sure, yeah, laughter can come out. Or just being done. Yeah. Just realizing that and just walking away. Yeah. So, not to make the story very long, but I remember there was an incident that I had with a gentleman at a gas station. This is where the laughter came out. And this is where it got really weird. So
bring on the weird.
We started this whole thing with me just talking about like how I became the person that I am. And to me, it was medicine. And so I hope that little elevator speech about how I eradicated all the bad feelings and the bad thoughts that I don't want to have in my life, and then those ended up being replaced with all these joyful, loving, wonderful other feelings, that's the medicine that I wanted to share in that whole aspect of my story. The effect that it had brought me joy and laughter, and again, a huge one was patience. Being very patient with people. Being very forgiving with people. Forgiving is a very interesting one. I think we talked a little bit about that one in the last podcast, but it's interesting. Like if somebody's doing something that I find offensive or I have grievance with, or if it's very, if it interrupts me, now it's inconvenient. For me to say that I forgive you, well, if somebody's actively trying to like get in my way and stop me, like I just want them to stop.
Yeah.
Right? That's all. They just need to stop. I don't need to actually like forgive them of their mannerism, because some people are just kind of that not aware.
Yeah. Well, right? Forgiveness is for you, not for them.
That's it. That's the point. So all these things started showing up, and then I had to like she said, like if I laugh at anger, when anger shows itself to me in another person, and my response is laughter, anger grows from that, because anger is going to take laughter offensively. Anger is not going to see someone laughing and be like, oh, I could be joyful instead of angry. No, anger is going to be like, you're laughing at me.
Yeah.
So anger is going to transform, anger is going to misinterpret joy as ridicule.
Yes.
It's very interesting. Anger perceives joy, or if I'm not responding back to them with anger, that means that my disassociation of their anger is also a form of ridicule back to them, criticism. So anger really convolutes the perceiver. When someone's angry, the way they perceive things is very muddled. So in this one, I had to learn how to navigate my new persona with the world that I came out of, with people that were like me. So, quick little story. Turning into a gas station. Honestly, didn't even see this guy. I did not see him. And there was, as far as I knew, no one on the street. Actually, I take that back. I did see him. I didn't know he was turning into the gas station. He could have had his blinker on, and I wasn't paying attention. I have a very fast processing mind. I can, and I'm not like patting myself on the back, but just through trial and error and experience, I do think very further ahead and faster. I process than a lot of the people that I find around me. So I can react faster, I can move faster, I see things like almost slowed down. So as far as like timing goes and all that, I can just navigate it very easily. Well, this gentleman, like I said, whether he had his blinker on or not, I knew I had like more than enough time to get into the driveway. I don't know if either of us had the right of way in this scenario. I know I was turning right into the driveway and he was turning left into the driveway. So if you're turning right, you technically do have the right of way.
I would say so, yeah.
But that thought didn't go through my mind. I just knew that I had more than enough time. And I remember I actively didn't use my turn signal. I was turning right. I didn't even notice that this guy was turning in. All these things are going through my head. More than enough time. Even if he was turning, even if we turned at the same time, I was totally in there with more than enough space. Wouldn't have been a problem. I turn in. Well, he's one of those guys that whatever his thinking process was when I did that maneuver, he just laid on his horn. He didn't like that. He didn't like that I got in the driveway first. Maybe he got scared. Because I didn't use my blinker, maybe he thought I was going to go straight. And since he was turning in, that probably like jostled him a little bit.
Yep.
Whether I felt like I had enough time or not, maybe in his mind that wasn't enough time. And that startled him. So he didn't know, he didn't see it the way I saw it. And he didn't have the reaction time like I did.
Right.
To know like, oh yeah, you can totally make that maneuver and it's not a big deal. So he got jostled. He honks his horn. I'm like, whatever, dude. And I'm going to my gas pump and I'm driving to the pump but he's still laying on his horn the whole time. Now he's like right on my bumper. Like he wants to do that angry bumper driving thing where I'm going to let you know how mad at you I am for your erratic driving. So he's just projecting on me.
Yeah.
And this part of, or this, when I transformed my thinking, my receptors started getting extremely sensitive. Like I was very prone to feeling a lot more than I had before. Because now I'm really aware of not just myself,
absolutely.
but also the effects of all the other
Yes.
people, whether they're interacting with me or not. I can just see the mirror of how they're acting, and I would just feel other people, their energy at least. Well, his energy is being directed directly at me in an extremely anger, like, F you, I hate you, I want you to die, I'm mad at you, I'm going to do it with sound.
Kind of scary.
And aggressive driving.
Yeah.
It is threatening. When someone's on your bumper like that and they're just blaring that horn and giving you that devil stare through the windshield, you're like, okay, easy.
Right.
We're just getting some gas. No one touched each other.
We didn't accident.
Metal
like, nothing,
didn't touch. We're fine. So I get to my gas pump. I see that he parks at his. And I'm like, don't even look at this guy. Right?
Are you guys like really close to each other still?
I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do this on camera. I'm here, and he's like back over here.
Okay.
So we're like, I'm at this side of the pump. He's on the opposite side
But
and
further
one
back.
pump back.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so I'm at my pump, and I'm like, just don't even look at this guy. Don't even look at him. So I'm doing my thing at the pump with the card, and I get the thing pumping, and I'm sitting there, and curiosity got the best of me. And I just looked over, and he's just staring at me. So I ignored it, and I went back to I just looked like this. I was like, and I looked away. And because he saw me look, he's like, yo, man. And he starts yelling at me about the maneuver. Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, hey, buddy, it's okay, all right? We didn't crash. Everything's fine. He's like, yeah, but... And then he said his whole spiel again. Now he's talking at me.
Mm-hmm.
He's at the talking at me part.
Yep.
He's not talking with me. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I don't see it that way, but, you know, we're okay, right? It's fine. You don't need to be so mad. That response to him got him so mad that he was like, you think you're a nice guy? You think you're all nice? You know what? You're a hole. You really... I'm like, okay, whatever. Now you don't need to call me names, all right? Now you're calling me names, all right? So chill out.
Yeah.
All right? He's like, no, you are. You're going to sit there and act like this when you're the bad guy. You're the piece of... And you did that. And I'm like, we already went through that, man. We didn't crash, okay? I apologize if you got startled.
Yeah.
I didn't get startled, man. I don't get scared. Whatever, I'm not scared. And you need to watch how you drive. And he's just raging on me. And I'm just like, whatever. And I left it alone. And
I thought you laughed.
No.
Okay.
I went inside the gas
I'm
station.
waiting for the laugh.
Yeah, I went inside the gas station. And then I came back out. And my pump is done. And I look over there and he's still there. Because, that's right. When he was berating me, he was having issues with his pump. So now he's all angry and he's not doing it right and whatever. And so he's still messing with his gas pump.
Yeah.
By the time I come back to my gas and I'm topping mine off and I'm finishing, and I can feel his heat. So I'm about to just get in the car and I look over. And he's like, yeah, and he starts talking more trash.
Again.
Well, I just did.
I know.
I didn't look like that.
Right.
I was just really quick glance, and he's just waiting for it.
Totally. Yep.
So now he's like, "Yeah, man, and he's just throwing it all at me again. And I'm like, you know what, dude? That's enough. That's enough. And I shut my door. I'm like, all right, that's you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
This guy, by me saying that, like, that's enough. You're not doing that. And me shutting my door and then walking toward him, in his mind, he thought we were going at it. He thought that was it. He thought we were going to sit there and start boxing, like right then and there. So what this guy does is
the opposite.
His gas is still in the gas trigger thingy. Yeah. The nozzle is still in his car.
Okay.
It's still pumping.
Yes.
Or it's not, but now he's so engaged with me, he doesn't even know what he's doing. Yeah. He jumps over the fuel line, the hose, and comes up at me like, yeah, well, come on. And I'm like, that's when I laughed. He's in my face. He's like, let's go.
Is your window down or is your...
No, I shut the door and walked away from my car toward him.
Oh, I thought you shut the door and was in the car.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Because he kept berating me, and I kept telling him he doesn't need to call me names, and he seriously can chill out, and everything is okay. Yeah. And I kept trying to de-escalate him, and that kept agitating him. Okay. And that was enough.
Did you slam your door shut?
I have no idea. I just shut it. I said, nah, that's enough. And I started walking toward him, and that's all I said. And so he thought that meant that we were about to box. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. This guy wasn't big. You know, he was just a scrawny little guy. Yeah. Shorter than me. That doesn't mean he couldn't hurt me.
Sure.
You know? I mean, I've had fantasies of uppercutting someone. I don't have, like, the biggest tanks, but I feel like you could do some damage. But I never want to. I don't want to hurt someone.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt someone. I also don't want to be responsible for the hurt that I could inflict on someone. I also don't want to find out that someone could really hurt me.
Yeah.
Right? Or that we could hurt each other.
Sure.
Now we're on the news. Somebody's in the hospital. Cops are being called. It's all dumb. It's just ridiculous stuff. I save my strength for the zombie apocalypse or to defend my family from an intruder. That's why I have fitness. That's the only reason. So this guy comes jumping over the thing to fight with me. I'm like, all right, look, buddy, you don't get to talk to people that way. I already told you everything is okay. And now as I'm trying to say this, he's in my face like, yeah, come on, man. You want to go? You think you're a tough guy? You're really a piece of... You're an asshole. You try to act all cool. You think you're so nice. You're not nice. I never said I was nice. I never said I was cool. He's just saying these things because he thinks that's how I view myself by the way I'm talking to him and just being calm and just trying to de-escalate with the sentiments and the statements that I'm making. This is how he's taking me. That's when I started laughing. And he's like, let's go. And he's kind of doing this little hippity hop like he's getting his nerves ready. I'm laughing. He's like, oh, well, you think this is funny? I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm like... It's
like you had an out-of-body experience for a second. Is that kind of what happened in that moment?
No, I was very aware of this whole thing. I was like, I'm not going to fight you, bro. I don't know if you think I'm fighting. Then what are you doing? I said, I came to confront you. You're not leaving me alone. I kept trying to de-escalate this. I kept trying to be cool. I kept trying to explain to you that we're fine. And you keep talking trash. You don't get to do that to people. You can't sit there and talk all this trash. You have no idea who I am. I don't even know who you are. He's like, you want to know me? I'm like... More laughter. I'm like, no, man. I honestly, now that you've asked the question, I really have no desire to want to know you at all. I'm sorry. I don't. And he was still yelling at me. And it was actually a lady who was on the other side of our pumps across the drive between the pumps. She's like, hey, man, come over here. And I look at her and I was like, what? She's like this quiet voice. She said it really calm. She's like, hey, man, come over here. She's in her car with her window down. And I look at her and I look back at him. And he's still yelling. Oh, like, I literally forgot about him. Yeah. Because he, like, wants to fight. And I'm like, I'm not fighting you, dude. That's the dumbest thing. I'm just telling you, you shouldn't talk to people that way. That's really nasty. So then I look back at her. And I'm just like, yeah, forget him. And I just walk over to her.
Totally.
And then she just wanted to console me and tell me to be careful and not to bother with it. She said she was watching the whole thing.
Okay.
She's like, I was watching the whole thing, man. It's, this isn't worth it. Bad things happen in these situations. I'm like, yeah, I know. So I start, like, engaging with her. Probably for about, like, maybe 2.5, 3 minutes. Not I'd say 2 minutes. And I look back and that guy's already driving off.
Wow.
So...
The second the energy left.
Yeah, the second the energy left, he realized he didn't want to be there either.
Yeah, I love it.
But my laughter, that was a case where laughter comes out. When someone is in absolute anger, like... But I had to confront him because now I was, like, personally offended. Like, you know what? People should not be sitting there screaming at each other across the pump. I've been onslaughted by this guy the minute I got into the driveway. He expressed why he was upset with me. I expressed back to him.
So right there, if I can just stop you, a little insight. When he expressed how upset he was with you at the very beginning, I do this with my daughters all the time. Where if I don't validate how they feel, so he's feeling angry. Yep. He's angry. Yep. He's feeling angry. Yep. If you would have validated his anger in the very beginning, it probably would have never escalated. And that's how I react to a lot of things. So, and especially with my kids, right? Whatever they're feeling, oftentimes I want to, like, change the way they're feeling. Oh, you're sad? Let's be happy. How can I make you happy? Which is so not the right thing to do, and I've learned. And if they're angry, or if they're jealous, or if I need to validate that feeling for them first. And that's, to me, it's at least what I've experienced. If I validate the feeling first, then you can move forward a lot more smoothly. All
right. Let's have an example.
Yeah. Well, let's just rewrite your story there.
Okay.
So you guys drove in, boom, and then what was the first?
The first thing was when I glanced over at him, he just starts going at me with my maneuver and... We could have crashed. Like, you shouldn't have done that. So he's yelling.
Oh man. Okay. I am so sorry. I understand that might have scared you. And I feel how that would make you angry right now. I'll definitely, I'm aware of what I'm doing, and I'm sorry that brought out anger in you. I can see why you could get angry at that.
I love it. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
First thing I did was dismiss his anger.
That's it.
The first thing I did
with my kids.
I was like, hey man, it's cool.
Yeah.
We didn't crash. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
And that's what pissed him off.
I didn't validate his anger.
That's what pissed him off.
Then when I did try to acknowledge it,
it's too late.
It was too late because then I was like, I'm sorry if what happened scared you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're calling me scared? Ooh. Now he took it that way. Well, then why are you upset? Yeah. But he didn't want to see that far.
Nope.
He was just in his anger.
Oh yeah.
And then calling somebody angry, scared is calling them weak.
Yep.
Calling them weak is saying that I'm stronger than you.
Yeah.
In their mind.
To your point, when they do they're just talking at you.
Mm-hmm.
They're alchemizing everything you say to
their frequency.
That's right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fascinating. I love living in these moments and being hyper aware of these moments and your relationship to the moments and their relationship and I love diffusing. I'm such a good diffuser.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how can you diffuse where you're still honoring yourself.
Right. Right.
But also honoring them as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one that I'm not learning because it's not like it happens to me all the time. But when it does happen, I am picking up on that. Like, the ability to honor yourself and then as well as acknowledge that person.
Mm-hmm.
Do them at the exact same time. Because in that instance, I felt like if I didn't say my side of the story directly back to his side of the story, that I wasn't honoring myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to put myself before him.
Yeah.
Because I was being attacked. So I went into defensive mode. When you're defensive, what do? You have to defend.
Yep.
So I was defending. So when you defend, you're already taking their position.
Yeah, you're playing the other side of that energy.
Yep.
And that's why he kept coming at you.
You're already
playing the other side.
Yeah,
the second your energy went away, so did he.
Yep. So you're already agreeing to their story when you defend.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love the way you just put that.
Yep. When you agree to somebody's story because you're defensive, it's like, well, I want to use Aikido here. In Aikido, in the art of Aikido, you take the energy that an opponent throws at you and you just sidestep it.
Ooh.
And then you let their own energy to deflect them away from you.
Yeah.
But in this case, I stood still.
Right.
And took the onslaught of his energy.
Yep. He's like, oh, there's a receptor.
Tried to bounce it back to him. Yeah, and I gave him an audience.
Receptor, yeah.
I gave him an audience. Sorry, I'm gonna...
We're getting comfortable.
Yeah. I love mint.
How long have we been doing this?
A little bit. Yeah. For some time. You know, this is the good fruit that and the medicine that I wanted to bring to the people.
I love it.
These are this is where the rubber meets the road.
Well, because in society today, with everything that's going on in the political arena and everything that's going on, there's so much going on. This is imperative that we become more aware.
Self-aware. To navigate this world.
Yes.
It's a very crazy
world. And people are so quick to share things. Like, they see a news story and they just want to share. And I think we need to stop being so triggered. Yes, and share their opinion. Stop being so trigger happy. Share. Like, whew. For a moment.
Mm-hmm.
For a moment. And get into the seat of your heart. And feel your body. And because there's so many people, and I've been guilty of this in the past, where you share things so quickly and you realize, oh, I didn't have the whole truth there. And wow, oof. Maybe I shouldn't have shared that so quickly. And, or
even reacted so quickly.
Yeah.
Really slowing myself down to give myself time to react to things. And I like to call it a moment, not a minute. That's a time frame, but just take a moment. Yes. If you can train yourself to take a moment before you're so reactive to a situation, you're going to give yourself you're going to give yourself reaction time.
Yeah.
Creating that space.
Well, you're changing it from a reaction to a conscious action. Yeah.
Which is very important. So I feel like that was some pretty good medicine here. But at the same time, I'd like to unpack a little bit further, like what things we have to navigate. Like where does the rubber meet the road here? Well, the rubber meets the road in your walking life, right? So I've learned to alchemize my feelings, and then the effect that has isn't always with an angry person at the gas station, or with my proud version of myself with an angry person at the gas station, or my defensive version, or whatever it was that I thought I was doing. Clearly didn't diffuse it, but there's also situations where people are just going to be that angry, so no matter what you do, it's like there's not much you can do here. Not much you can pick up. Not much you can help put down from what they're putting out there.
Yeah.
And so where I want to go with this is, you can. It's very imperative to do things to get to know yourself as best as you can. For our audience and hopefully future listeners of this podcast, I am totally on a mission to discover as much of myself as I possibly can. Not just for my own comfort, but I think it's for the betterment of the world around me.
Socrates, the unexamined life is not worth living.
Sure. I mean, it's very important for me to know myself because it helps me navigate the world that I'm in. And then I'm not what's the word I want to say here? I'm not unaware of the effect that I have on the world around me. I want to know. You, yeah, I can control me. I can't control the world. So if I can control me, or if I'm responsible, or if I'm accountable for myself, then I can take better active participation in the way the world can receive me.
That's beautiful.
Versus just, wondrously skipping around aimlessly, unaware of the effect that I have on people. You can't change the effect that people are going to have,
right?
But you can change who you are, which does, in a sense, change how they can perceive you, how they can receive you. And then that goes all the way back to that moment in time when my spiritual resurgence grew. It was because I wasn't happy with how I was participating with the world.
Yeah, and your posture, the posture that you take going forward, that draws different aspects out of people.
That's right. It really does. It really does. So there's some that I'm still working on. I mean, it's always a work in progress. It's always a work in progress.
Yes.
But it is important to at least know more about myself. It's very important for us to know as much about ourselves as we possibly can, so that way we can be actually accountable for the effect that we have on the world around us. In this world. In this world, this is a crazy world. This is a world where we have politics run amok, or were politics ever even good to begin with? I don't know. It's sure amok. We have social media, news media outlets screaming misinformation and lies back and forth at each other.
Yep.
Half the stuff, no, not half, pretty much almost all, I'll say almost all the stuff that I see on the news, I don't believe.
It's white noise to me. White noise, white noise.
White noise because you drowned it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's not relevant.
Sure.
It's not relevant to me in my immediate life right here.
Okay, I'll look at it. I don't drown it out, but when I look at it, I still don't believe it. I still don't believe it because I don't believe what they're saying. What I do believe is what they're saying has an agenda behind it.
Yes.
And the way they're saying it has a specific effect that they want to have by me, the viewer.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason that they're saying it.
Yes.
Whether it's true or not. And if everyone's calling each other a liar, and if everyone's saying that all their news is false news, then I can't trust any one of them. And it isn't to say that some of the things that are being reported aren't accurate.
Yeah. But
if they're accurate, I still want to know what's your motivation behind it.
What's the agenda, like you said? I like that word.
Right, absolutely. There's a very good example that I'm not going to use because it could be quite controversial.
Oh, you need to use it now.
Well,
or come up with another one really quickly.
All right. Well, I can't come up with another one really quickly.
Okay, so you're using it.
I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
But I have to preface this with, I'm only going to make an observation of how this bit of news was reported.
Okay.
And how there was clearly an underlying motive behind the way they reported it. They wanted you to think this way.
Okay.
All right. They wanted you on this side of this topic.
Yes.
So no matter how,
you say it all the time.
No matter what anybody listening to this, or even you, or even me, no matter what our opinions are about this topic, this is my observation about it.
Okay.
So it's about the COVID vaccine. All right. So this news report was stating the number of people in Minnesota who had been receiving their COVID shot. And I think it was in 2021 they were making this report. So there was apparently a census done, a data collection taken, and this news reporter, this news anchor on the news was saying at least 80%, it has been reported that at least 80% of Minnesotans have now received their vaccination shots, if not multiple shots, like
that's a large number.
Round 1, round 2, right. But here's how they said it. Great news! At least 80% of Minnesotans are now reported as vaccinated, so that's really great. I mean, we're moving in the right direction. That is really good. We are on track. So we're doing it right. We're doing it right. Well, there's a lot of people that don't believe in getting vaccinated.
Freedom of choice.
Freedom of choice.
And they're not,
They were promoting the
that
success
if you make this
and
choice,
the celebration
it's the right choice. If you don't, it's
of
the
being
wrong
vaccinated.
choice.
And they were celebrating this.
Yeah.
I feel like that's wrong. For a news organization to celebrate
they should be
that
neutral.
statistic, they should be non-biased.
Yeah, agreed.
They were not non-biased. They were, and knowing what an uproar there was with the vaccination of one or the other, to sit there and say it in that manner just made anyone who didn't feel the vaccine was necessary for them like they were a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And the news didn't care an iota of that. So that's what the news does.
Yeah.
And I feel like whether they know it or not, so let's say that this news anchor and this entire news organization was 100% on board with vaccinations, with the COVID vaccination.
Mm-hmm.
And they all believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way they're going to promote it. That's the way they're going to spin it, and they have that right. No problem. But as a news anchor, if your job is to be non-biased and not single anybody out, you should be aware of that. Mm-hmm. So if they're not aware of it, let's pretend for a minute that they're not aware of it, and they feel like everybody's on board with this. All their watchers are on board with this. All the people that view their station are on board with this. Maybe they weren't even thinking, I should be thinking non-biasedly.
Right.
Maybe they just thought they were cheering on the home team, and that's what we all do for the home team. We cheer on the home team. So that was their home team. Mm-hmm. So they're cheering it on. So that means that they've literally thrown the idea out of being a non-biased journalist and not having an opinion, and then also not letting your opinion affect your watchers. You're very happy to let your opinion affect your watchers. You're very happy to make a precedent and influence people. Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that are watching your program. We absolutely want to influence you. We want you to know that you should get your vaccine. And if you are, you can celebrate with us on this side of the fence.
Right. You can join the 80%.
I don't think that's a good thing for news to do. And so when news does that with everything.
That's why I don't watch the news.
Me neither. I don't. And when I do stumble across it, periodically when I am on social media or just in passing by of TV screens, it's there. And I'll stop and I'll look and I'll be like, still don't believe it.
Yeah, I just feel the energy. If you can, not even listen to what's being said, but feel the energy, it just feels very compressive to me. It feels very contractive. It feels very, I notice my body. How does my body feel when I'm watching or listening to this? And if I feel tight and contracted, I'm super aware of that, and I'm like, okay.
You don't want that.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah. Or look at the environment. Look at the playing field.
Yeah.
Right? Name a place that you, name a situation that you really enjoy. That's really good for your heart, your body, your psyche.
Yoga.
Okay, so she's doing yoga. She loves that environment. Look at the political environment. It is not yoga. It is not for physical body health. It is not for the stretching of your sore muscles. Mm-mm. It is not for the expansion of your breathwork endurance. It is not for mindful meditation.
Strength, yeah.
The endurance that it gives you. Reflection.
Yeah.
Contemplation.
Yeah.
Stillness, oneness. Nothingness. Inspiration. No, that is not the political arena. No. The political arena is
agenda.
It's trying to tell everyone else how to think.
That's it.
It's trying to tell everyone else how to think. We need to be the same. We need to think the same, and we need to figure out what the same is. My same is the best for everybody.
Right. I know. And I don't think it's bad to watch the news. I'm going to say. I know a lot of people watch the news. It is not bad to watch the news. Just make sure that when you're watching the news, you're watching it with your own thoughts and your own person, and you're not just ingesting it. And, you're actually using your own discernment and, not just taking everything in as if it's truth. Right.
And then if you can see behind the scenes of what they're trying to say.
Sometimes it's fun to watch the news for that purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely want to know what's going on in the world, because this is the world that we live in. Don't live like an ostrich with your head in the sand. Maybe
sometimes.
That's a fair point though too.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes because that's the alone time.
Yeah.
Right? That's why it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. If a comet falls, or if it is a zombie apocalypse, or Armageddon, Civil War, whatever, if you're just in your zone and you're fine if you get annihilated while you're in your you time, but you need your you time, have your you time. Turn it all off.
I love my me time.
Yeah. Everyone should love their me time. It's so nurturing.
For sure.
It's so nurturing. It's like food for the soul.
Yeah, and even if in your time there's loneliness, even if you feel alone.
That's still food.
it is
it's still showing you something
like,
that you need to nourish or
feel it, sit in it.
All those things.
Because especially when we leave the body and we die, we're connected to everything.
Mm-hmm.
So what a beautiful experience to be able to experience separateness and aloneness.
Yeah, we can go into that one next.
Okay.
Still on the turning off the news, so it's good to know what's going on. It's also good to understand your relationship with the news, just like I was talking about the social media earlier. What is your relationship with it? What are you doing it for? Are you doing it because you want someone to tell you how to think about these topics? Are you doing it because you want to be told? Do you not have an opinion, or are you just looking to fill your brain with something to think about?
Or drama. Some people want drama.
Yeah. Oh, people love the news. Loves selling drama.
Yes.
There was 1 million people without power during the thunderstorm down in Dallas, Texas. 1 million.
Yep.
Whoa! Millions of people across the East Coast lost their power when that hurricane through. Well, yeah, that's normal. That's what happens.
I think sometimes people are bored.
It's just a statistic, but they spin it with this huge action drama, like it's something that has to be, and then they feed off that. That's an attention that people love.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they know they're doing it. But so news isn't bad, like you said. Just watch it with discernment. I know a lot of people that are news mongers. They love the news. They love the debates. They love arguing. They love having an opinion. They drank one Kool-Aid or another. Now they're on this side or that, and then now, without even realizing it, they're arguing against that other opinion just because they drank the Kool-Aid of this one, and they're not being open-minded. They're not being objectively thinking, critical thinking. They're not making their own.
It's so important to have people in your life that have opposite views of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are someone that everyone you're surrounded by has the same views as you, man, I challenge you to go out and make a friend that has the complete opposite views.
Right.
Because it's important.
Yeah. So, not to get too far into the political world, because there's a lot of things happening in our world. Like, we have stuff happening with the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
The ecosystem of our planet. And the effect that humanity is having on it. We have that going on. We have massive spiritual enlightenment happening all over the place. That's happening. Like that, I call that evolution. We have massive evolution happening. Like where our species and the earth and the animals and the planet and the solar system and everything is evolving and moving to, that's happening at the same time, which has a direct effect on our intellect, our emotions, our spiritual connection, our faith, our belief. So that's happening. It's happening simultaneously as all this political unrest. That's also happening as global humanity. At the same time that global humanity is happening. Political unrest in one country is to say that, is there not political unrest in every country? Or is there a country that has total peace? Is there one out there that's just fine? Like, their plumbing works great, their electrical grid system works great, they have a perfect financial economy, their ecosystem is in proper balance with the nature around it, and everyone's in seemingly harmony, other than being late to work or something. That's the biggest news story.
The Amish.
That's
the Amish.
That's in America, but they live off grid.
Yeah.
They're not tied to any of this. I don't think there is. I think so. The political world is the governmental world. The powers that are running each one of the countries. That's its own story that's unfolding and happening. Then there's actual the humanity of people. How communities are engaging with each other. People at the gas pump getting mad at each other. And I think that all those things actually do tie into each other. They really do. So there's, not having the ability to draw that map out right now. I do believe that the way the political world is working, the way the government organizations are operating their countries, the way citizens are engaging with each other, the way humans are living their lives and the effect that it has on the earth environment around us, and all the spiritual evolutionary growth that's happening with each of us and the universe happening in this moment. All those things are actually interconnected. So what's happening with one is a byproduct of, when you see the effects of what's happening with one, whether it's a positive or a negative, that is a byproduct of that one that is also mirrored somehow on some level, maybe not exactly identical or maybe not on the same like percentage scale. They're all interlinked. So if you have harmony within yourself, within your community, that should, I believe, lead to harmony within the others around you, within your community, into the political system, into the humanity, the effect that it has on the planet, and then the scale of evolvability that we're going to be able to withhold.
It starts here.
Yeah.
It starts here, and then the more and more harmony we find within ourselves, which is basically integrating all of the aspects that you don't like, integrating, looking at loving your whole self, loving your whole self. The more and more we begin to do that, the more and more like everyone starts lighting up, you know. And, and then eventually it'll hit the tipping point, and the collective consciousness is now leaning more the other way.
Yeah, and that's so perfect that you said that, because that's the message point that I guess I'm driving at here, without actually feeling like I had a message point, is that I want everyone to do the work.
Yes.
I want everyone to do their own work, because when you do that work, when you're on that mission of self-discovery, growth, connection to the universe, connection to everything around you, with an intention of love and purity and honesty and accountability, with compassion and understanding, patience and forgiveness, we will all start lighting up. We'll all start lighting up, and then we will have that tipping scale counter effect on this seemingly crumbly world that we live in. But it does take everyone to show up. So anytime, if you catch me saying they, like they're doing it, well, I'm they too.
Totally.
I'm totally they.
Absolutely.
Even though I don't have a podium
in
front of 1 million people and 20 news cameras, I'm still a they.
Absolutely.
I'm still in that picture.
Absolutely.
So the effect that whatever it is that I do, in any way that I do it, just with personal interactions or when I'm out in the world, that has a ripple effect too. And if we all find ourselves and attune ourselves to love, compassion,
and then
community, family,
that's it.
That'll have a resounding effect, and that will become the thing.
That'll become the thing. And then when someone does act out or does something seemingly wrong, there was this thing that went around, right? There was a tribe where anytime someone acted out, they would put that person in the middle of the tribe, and everyone would do a circle around them. And then each person, one by one, would say what they love about that person. And by the end of it, that person would be filled with so much love.
That is cool.
That it just, so...
That's care.
That's care, right?
That's care.
So even if someone's going to act out, so come from love, but also know that sometimes someone may be jealous. Sometimes someone may steal something. Sometimes someone may... And still come from love.
Still circle them with love.
That's right.
We don't do that.
We don't do that.
We don't do
because
that.
we don't just circle ourselves with love.
Yeah, you can do it.
It starts with circling yourself with love.
Right, I want to do it. I want to do that.
The cardinal rule is love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
But we forget to love ourselves.
Right, so then that's how we're loving our neighbor as we love ourselves.
We're doing the rule.
Right.
We're doing the rule, but
we're not even loving ourselves.
That's
so
right.
start loving yourself.
Yeah, start loving yourself.
And then when you love yourself, you can love people.
Yeah, when you love your own jealousy.
Yeah.
Then when you see it come up from another.
Yeah. Like we were talking about in the last podcast.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, when you witness the poser.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Or the whatever. What did you call it? What was it?
Imposter.
The imposter.
Yeah.
Then you see the imposter in another person, and then it's adorable.
And you love it.
And you love that imposter.
Yeah, absolutely.
You admire that imposter.
Yes.
You can say, "Hey, I know you. I'm familiar with you. I recognize you. Right, I know you, and now I'm familiar with you. Now I don't feel so estranged to you because what's in you is in me.
I don't fear you anymore. I don't judge you. I don't shame you. I don't fear you. Because I've now looked at you and brought you into the light. Yeah, that's the work.
And that's how that's really is what it takes. Like if you do that inner shadow work that you were talking about in the last podcast, and you really take the time, and I guess you could have called my transition, my spiritual surgeons, my eradicating of the negative energy and then replacing with, very positive, beneficial feelings and thoughts, energies. That could be called shadow work, right? That whole exercise that I was doing is shadow work.
Yes.
When you do that, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, when you do that, all those other darker negative density energy feelings, they're not so affrontive anymore. So
yes.
when you see them in another person, and because you know that you've been that person yourself, you can receive it in a loving manner, in an understanding manner. Like, oh, I accept that in you. I accept that in you because that's in me. I know that was in me. I had to get intimate with that part of me. So when I say that I eradicate it, that's not absolutely true.
Right.
I just acknowledge it and then take it for what it's worth, what it's showing me more about myself in that moment and in that situation. And I say thank you for showing me that, but now I'm gonna do this instead. So all those darker, negative, muckier feelings actually become like little spidey sense warning things for me to say, hey, this is how this situation is making you feel. Or this is how the way this person's talking to you is making you feel.
Yep.
But instead of blaming them or the situation, why are you feeling that way? What's going on inside of you? And what can you do with that? And that's where the what it's showing you part. So that's that shadow work. That's the alchemy. The alchemy happened when you see that in another person. Then now you're like, oh, we are alike.
Yeah.
So I don't need to reject how you're feeling. I don't need to not acknowledge how you're feeling. So now I'll go back to the gas station guy. I had eradicated so much anger out of my life. I did not want to experience his anger. So I didn't acknowledge his anger back to him. I didn't acknowledge it.
Right.
I wanted to immediately shut it down with, you don't need to be angry, we're fine. Well, he didn't like that. He's like, no, we have to be angry.
Yeah.
Well, I don't do anger, so I'm not going to do anger with you.
Right.
Well, that's making me more angry. Sorry. Giggle, snicker, snicker. But it's like acknowledging it, that's the transformation. That's how you can help alchemize it. Because then if somebody can be angry, if they're allowed to be angry, if they're not aware of their anger, if they're not even aware that their anger is a problem, if they're just a reactory person, and when anger comes out, they just be anger, and they don't care the effect that it has on the world around them, they just be anger. Well, you don't necessarily need to squelch their anger. You don't necessarily need to do that. But if you cannot be affronted by their anger, and their anger holds no power over you, and you know that you've been angry, so you can recognize angry. Like, yeah, I've been angry before, so you're angry now. Okay. Now you're, but then I'm not going to reject your anger and look at you as a stranger. I'm going to say, no, I've been angry.
Yeah.
You're my family.
Anger's become a friend.
I know anger. Anger is a friend.
Anger is a friend.
Anger is a friend. I'm not afraid of
That's
anger.
right.
I'm not going to run from anger, and I'm not going to shut anger down. Go ahead, anger. You can be anger. That's fine. And then when people get to be that, like that circle of love.
That's it.
You're feeding them with love. You're feeding them with, it's fine to feel how you feel. That gives them time to reflect. Whether it's put a time frame on it, I don't even know. But if they're not instantly being told they can't be angry, now they're going to defend their anger.
Yes.
Versus if they just get to be their anger, now they can dispel their anger.
Yeah, I can move through quickly.
Yeah, move through. Not get over, not shut down, but move through. Yeah, that's what we all need to do for each other.
Yes.
That's what we all need to do for each other because we really need to understand that we're family.
And do it for ourselves.
But yeah. Start with yourself. You always have to start with yourself, right? That's like the baseline, like
allow your anger.
101.
Yes.
Like instructional step book to the new world that we're walking into. 101 baseline lesson. Love yourself.
Yeah.
Learn how to love yourself. And like Amanda was saying, every aspect of yourself. Love all the aspects of yourself. Feel them when they're there. Feel them when they're there and let them speak to you and listen to what they're showing you about yourself. Where you need healing, where you need growth, where you have an opportunity for learning to occur. That's what those feelings are really, really, really showing us the most. We get too distracted with the players and the situations that show up to bring these feelings out to us that we forgot that those feelings they're ours and they're actually talking to us.
Yes.
So stop getting distracted. Like there's some more of that medicine, there's some more rubber to the road. When you have the feelings, remind yourself as a practice, I'm not going to be distracted by the person or the situation that's bringing this feeling up into me. I can take a moment to look at this and say, why am I feeling this way?
Yes.
What is it showing me? Because so many times everyone is quick to blame the situation. Again, that was part of my story. I blamed everything else outside of me for why I was not happy with life.
Yeah.
And even in that statement, I was not happy with life. And I couldn't change life. Nothing was working.
Yes.
I was throwing every trick
So
at the book
keep
that
being
I could.
Unhappy.
Until after enough time and enough failure, I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's not life, it's me.
Totally.
Life wasn't unhappy with me. I was unhappy with me. Right. I was trying to blame life, so I was distracted. I was blaming everything else instead of realizing life was doing everything it needed to do to get me to focus on that point. And it did. It put me in so many scenarios where I kept getting upset or disappointed or offended by everything else around me. Life turned the volume up on purpose because I wasn't listening. Life turned the volume up so loud that all I could hear was how unhappy I was with life.
Yeah.
And it turned it up so loud that the only thing I could make out of that was life is going to be what it is. I can't change life. I can't change anything outside of myself. The only option for change here is me. And life had to turn the volume up till I got that message. So then that's what it took for me to stop being distracted with life, to listen to what all that anger was showing me, that I was unhappy with myself. So don't get distracted when life brings you, when you feel these emotions that cause you disrupt or dismay. Sadness, loneliness, jealousy, anger.
Make them your friend.
Make them their friend and listen to what they're trying to tell you.
Yes.
And again, don't get distracted by the players that show up, because we're all players for each other. They say player's gonna play, hater's gonna hate. We're all players in this game.
Yes.
I will absolutely I will show up as a puppet unintentionally for someone else.
Yeah.
And my intention is not to trigger them and bring up those emotions that they're feeling. I'm just skipping along.
Need that.
And life moves us. Life moves us in ways that we don't see behind the scenes.
Totally.
And it will draw us into an alignment. And alignment isn't always like perfect, bubbly, dreamy.
No.
Alignment just means when things are aligned, things are going to happen. And things are supposed to happen. When the things that are happening are challenging or frustrating or upsetting, life did that on purpose too. Life did that on purpose. Life wanted that interaction for both parties involved, or all parties involved. And if all parties involved can be more self-aware and more mindful, and then internalize what they're experiencing from the situation,
yes,
that's where we rise up to a higher or a more expanded way of humanity on Earth.
I love that.
That's where we're moving toward. That's why the
evolution.
shadow. Yeah, it is. It is evolution. We are absolutely transforming.
Yep.
We're for sure transforming. We are transforming to a beautiful place to where I feel like there's a potential for a split in humanity. Two different versions of humans. Have you ever considered that before?
I've heard of like the splitting of the timelines, right? A more positive timeline versus a more lower vibrational timeline.
Not even a timeline.
Okay.
Okay, so did you know that when people do like genealogical experiments, they like to use flies? Hereditary experiments.
Okay.
They like to use flies.
Yeah.
Flies have a very short lifespan.
Okay.
So you can watch their generations
okay.
very easily.
Yep.
So there's this experiment where somebody took a certain number of flies, and like we'll just call them 50 flies. And they had 50 flies in this big huge tank, like a fish tank, and it was sealed. So what the person did was he took 25 of them out and put them in their own fish tank. And then with the 25 in tank A, they fed them like meat and bread and cheese. And then in the other tank, the other 25, they fed them fruits and berries and vegetables. So two completely different diets. And after, I think it was like a series of generations, because they have such a short lifespan, it was very easy to go through these generations. One of them in the tanks became very big and got a darker skin color.
Oh.
They just changed. And then the one in the other tank got very light and almost like a yellow color and smaller. So light, I meant like light colored.
Yeah,
so they were like more of a yellower color. Yeah. And they got smaller in stature. And I don't remember which was which, but what they did was they brought them back together. They put them all in the same tank now. After these generations, they transformed the type of fly or the embodiment of fly that they were because of their diet. And the flies did not interact with each other as if they were two different species, like the way they usually would. So like the way flies communicate, the way they would interact with each other, those two different versions of flies now together in the same tank did not interact with each other as if that wasn't even a fly. That isn't even a fly to me. I think that's what's going to happen to humanity.
So you're saying potentially there's going to be two types of humans and we're not going to interact with one another? Or we're going to segregate,
well, I don't think it's going to...
It's kind of like the slums and the rich.
Well, that's already...
That's what I'm saying. That's already kind of...
It's not to the point of that we're not going to interact with each other. But that experiment only showed that because the species became so different, that their non-interaction with each other was evidence of how divided the species could become. So that they didn't recognize each other as the same species anymore. I think humanity, if you look at different evolutionary charts, and they'll show where certain animals branched off from each other, like where the large cats are part of the feline family, and then there's domesticated cats. And then there's feral, smaller cats. And so when you look at that, it's like this little one line where all feline cats came from, and then one branched over here, one branched over there. And then, history tries to look at where those branches happened in the timeline and why they could have happened, what made the large cats, like lions and tigers and jaguars and all that, why if they all came from this one feline source, where the split happened and why it happened, what caused that evolution to happen. So it's going to be like that. So here we are as just humans. And then we're on this timeline, and we're at a point now where I think I don't know if you and I are going to witness it. I think we're actually like in the very slow version of it happening.
Okay.
And the reason that I think that it's going to happen and what it's going to look like is I think there's going to be a version of humanity that gets very... one that gets very in tune with nature. A version of humanity that gets so in tune with nature that I believe it's going to what I would consider having access to different dimensional planes.
Okay. The Fae.
That's an example of that. Yeah, that's like a lore story of that. Like being able to personify yourself on a frequency that is not of the same dimension.
Okay. But
also is of the same dimension. So there's going to be a version of humanity that gets extremely materialistic, very not of nature.
Okay.
They're going to become very materialistic. It's going to be all about their physical body more than anything else. It's going to be about but not just their physical body. It's going to be about a very denser perspective of reality.
Like AI-ish?
It could go that way, yes.
Okay.
Like if you literally condense yourself down to the point where you let other things dictate your sense of happiness, your sense of self, your connection to the universe.
Soul.
You lose your connection to nature, to the universe. You're so immersed in an artificial world where TV entertainment is where I find my happiness and my joy. Whether it's movies, I have to be watching a screen. Yeah. I have to have a really nice bed. I have to wear nice clothes. That's a visual, superficial thing. If I see somebody not in really nice clothes, also, which is expensive clothes, they're not my species. You now mentally are segregating yourself. Intellectually, you're segregating yourself from that person in your psychic way of thinking, your psyche. And then that can go so far where it could lead to the AI to say, you have your bot buddy, and your bot buddy learns you and learns what you like. And so you leave it up to your bot buddy to finish your sentences and tell you the things that make you feel good and says things. Now, the bot buddy, it's not the bot buddy's fault because the bot buddy was programmed to learn you as the human user, and the bot buddy will learn the things that you like and learn the things that you don't like, and the bot buddy's job is to make you happy. So the bot buddy is going to say things that make you happy, and you're going to rely on that bot buddy for your happiness. And then you're going to encounter a human, and the human's going to say things that aren't considerate of your happiness, your handcrafted happiness, not like your bot buddy is. And you're going to start distancing yourself, potentially, from human interaction. And you're going to become in this whole artificial world. And then if people are going to start jacking themselves up with AI mind sensor,
right,
and using that, one of the things is for the Neuralink is to be able to have access to internet knowledge through the Neuralink into your brain.
Ah.
Okay, so that's a lot of information. And then to have access to it. I'm not quite sure how I understand it altogether. I've heard of a couple of people who have had Neuralink specifically to help them with neurological disorders. Okay. So they're paraplegic.
Yep.
It's giving them the ability to do things with their body that their brain nerve connection wasn't able to do. It's giving them the ability to interact with technology. Whereas if their hands aren't mobile, their mind can connect to the Neuralink in their brain, and they can teach the Neuralink based on what they're telling their mind to do, that Neuralink is going to now relay that neurological firing in their brain to make an interaction with the computer, the cursor. So an example is, there's a gentleman who's got this thing in right now. And if he wants to move his cursor to the right, he thinks, move my right hand to the right. And even though his hand isn't moving, his brain thinking that is a response that the Neuralink can pick up and then say, okay, when he makes that thought and these neurons are firing, that means move the cursor to the right. So now this man can interact with computer interfaces.
That's beautiful. It'd be cool to do that with like airplanes and cars and stuff.
He's actually gaming on websites.
Oh, nice.
First-person shooters, and he's a gamer. He can do that with this Neuralink. They programmed it so he can do what would be gamer controller things, but they interfaced the Neuralink with a digital version of a gamer control, and then with his thoughts thinking that he's doing the interaction with the gamer control, the Neuralink will make that digital version of the gamer control happen, and he's running around in like Fortnite.
I mean, how cool it really makes you have to learn how to focus and really drive your will down to a single point.
He even said at one point, and he said it kind of happened and it surprised him. Because, like, he's really involved with the scientists that are doing this to, like, get a lot of data collection to use for, like, the next gen and this participant and that participant and what levels and the feedback that they get. So he said this one surprised him. It was really cool. He said he was just doing whatever, and I can't remember exactly the situation, but he was about to think the thought of, like, move my hand right to make the cursor go right. And just before he actually, he remembers this. He said just before he had the thought of telling himself to move his hand right, the cursor started moving right for him. So the AI already picked up on his intention before he had to say the thought.
It's in your energetic field.
His intentional field. Right, that is pretty intense.
That's pretty cool.
So what I believe is on the nature side of things, the side of the human that will split into the nature side, that telekinesis is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
Telekinesis, mental telepathy is all absolutely possible. Sounds very mystical and all that kind of stuff. I believe it. I believe that if you have that, you don't need the AI.
Right.
You don't have to have the side effects of AI. The only reason why I would say that it would be better to learn like your Jedi self versus an AI capability would be AI is going to interact with the outside world only so much. Right? So if you program this Neuralink to interface with gaming, computers, web searches, whatever, even if you get a Neuralink and I get a Neuralink and then somehow we can start talking to each other through our Neuralinks without using our lips, that's still through that chip. Yeah. But that's a limited hardware program. Something has to power that. Something has to generate that. There's got to be some electricity.
You're still reliant on it.
And there's mechanism. It can decay.
Sure.
Bodies decay too. But when it comes to mechanism, well, guess what? That doesn't come from the air. So here we are again, ripping minerals up out of the earth to create all these wonderful technologies. And that ripping up out of earth is, again, our non-accountability for what we're doing to the world.
Yeah, it's because we're so focused on the outward. And if we focus on the inward and develop these within ourselves, we realize, we actually already have this capability.
Right. We don't need to rip up more ground. We don't need to destroy more agriculture. We don't need to destroy more trees, more ecosystems, just so we can Neuralink with each other. Just so we can have batteries in our electrical cars. Because fuel is bad now. Well, guess where that electricity comes from, people? For those batteries. It's not a pretty story.
Right, and how do you get rid of it? Yeah.
Right, and then so Mother Nature is a recycling system. Mother Nature recycles all minerals. You know, we have like plutonium rods from nuclear power plants, and they have to like bury them in like tubs of water, and the water becomes radioactive, and then they have to store those tubs of water with the rods in like 20-foot thick concrete walls, and they just don't know what to do with it. Some places have said that they know how to discharge uranium rods and plutonium rods, if I'm saying those chemicals properly or not, but it's a very toxic thing that nuclear power plants create. It has a very adverse side effect of radiation. Mother Nature planet Earth will recycle those eventually. If you stopped everything from manufacturing that created these radiation byproducts and never did any more with it and just left them out in a field and like watched 1,000 years go by, they would disintegrate somehow. Mother Nature would do something with it. It would absorb it, it would do it, it would figure out a way. The problem is we're doing so much of stuff like that we're making it really, we're choking Mother Nature. We're making it very hard for the planet to recycle all of the newly formed compositions of the elements. Because we're just taking from the earth. Everything we have is from the earth. Every metal, every copper wire, every element. And then we're modifying them or refining them in a manner that is in a more difficult way for the earth to recycle it and repurpose it and get it back to itself. You know, every time you take from the earth, you're taking a bite out of the earth. You're taking off the earth. But if you're not letting it recycle back, you're depleting the earth, and then what you are recycling back, whatever you are giving back or throwing in the dumps or in the waste, is something that's hard for the planet to digest.
Yeah.
So we're on this huge race for more technology, for more junk, for more luxury, for more convenience, for more entertainment, at the expense of the planet that we live on, which is our home. We gotta stop that too.
I'm guilty, right?
We all are.
Yeah.
Do you use underarm deodorant?
Yeah.
What does it come in?
A plastic container.
Yeah. Does your underarm deodorant have a cap on top of it?
Of course.
So like dust and stuff doesn't get on it?
Yep.
When you get a brand new one and you pull the cap off, does it have a little seal cap? That piece of plastic you chuck away right away? Yeah. Lip balm.
Yeah.
Lip balm. Look at this. I'm super guilty of this. I need to change this. I keep saying I'm going to. My breath mints. Individually plastic sealed and chucked in a bag. That's a whole lot of plastic.
Yep.
I could get Altoids. They come in a tin box.
That's true.
And then they're not in this little plastic seal.
Yep. A little bit better.
Toothpaste.
Mm-hmm.
Toothpaste is another one. Do you like condiments?
Yeah.
Do you only buy glass bottle condiments or do you buy plastic?
Plastic.
Whatever it comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the world that we live in.
Yep.
It's just, we're living in a world where we are absolutely unaccountable for the impact. And a lot of people know this. You know, this doesn't need to become an environmentally, an environmental conversation, but it's a thing. It's one of the things that we have to address. And I think if we get more in tune with ourselves, again, that same story.
Yep. I think it'll naturally happen, right? The more and more we go in, the more and more we become quiet, still, get to know ourselves, loving aspects. I think a byproduct will happen where we'll become more conscious of the earth. We'll become more conscious, just more conscious in general. It just naturally happens. The more and more you love yourself, the more and more you love others, the more and more you love the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a gentleman who was saying, when people do their inner work, and when people find their personal enlightenment, their personal peace, and they understand that they want peace and they want compassion, when they're doing that for themselves and they do it individually for themselves, it is almost a natural effect to suddenly want that for everything else around you. Mm-hmm. And the more people that do that, the more people will get on that same bandwagon. So where you'd actually have somebody who is in a corporation who had a product that probably wasn't very good for the environment. And then, they would say, well, they wouldn't even do something that's bad for the environment. Like, so it could be a very slow, gradual change.
It has been and will be.
I don't want it with pitchforks and torches.
That's not change.
No.
That's actually more of the same.
That's a great point. A lot of people talk about change and they're like, well, how do you do change? Well, you force change. Well, that's not change because that's what everything has been for the thousands.
Gandhi.
Well, yeah, what about Gandhi?
That's a great example of the correct way to get change. Right? It's peaceful. Standing up for what you believe in through a peaceful manner. Mm-hmm. And he got change. Yeah,
he did. He really did. If anybody doesn't know Gandhi's story, check it out. I'm not going to rehash it, but yeah, that was it. That was a very beautiful... Mm-hmm. So what we're saying is we want change. Or rather than we want change, I think I'm definitely tuning into that change is happening. Change is happening. Change is inevitable. Out of all the things in the world, change is like one of the most inevitable things. One of the most things that you can like, are going to happen. So we want change. I have visions of what I think good change is, and so does everybody else. Mm-hmm. So does everybody else. So what is the best change? Well, I think one change that everybody could agree on is, no matter what demographic they're in or what they think, change where we all are kinder to each other. Now, take a leader of a country who is being cast as a warmonger. Could I play that to that person? Would they want everyone to be more kind to each other? I think maybe. It also might be backed with, like the way I think you should be kind to me.
Yeah, different perspective.
Yeah, definitely different perspective. But I think that's in a deeper, darker, denser layer. People of that nature, people that have like massive power and massive influence. So I think to me, in the storyline of how change looks, they potentially will be the further out end of the people that get changed. Change is going to come from the people in mass. They're going to be the latest ones to change.
Yes.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yep. As the people change, the leaders will change.
Yeah, I believe that. Mm-hmm. They'll be the last ones, though.
Yes.
They won't be the frontliners.
As we can see.
I know, right? Okay, so I want to ask you, at this moment, is there anything else that you think you'd like to share in this podcast?
Nope.
Cool. I was kind of feeling a close coming.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm getting antsy.
Okay. All right, everybody.
I feel myself getting antsy.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. I hope some of the things that we talked about were enriching for you. We are all here together on this planet. Let's do our best to make it as good as it can be.
It starts here.
Do the shadow work. And then watch those little lights sparkle everywhere.
Yes.
Good?
Good.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you next time.